Good morning. Am I audible? Hello? Good morning. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Fine. So you can see tute also, no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So we'll start the session. So I'm not going to take entire 3 hours or 3.5 hours. So it will be difficult to discuss theories in online version online through online. So my purpose is we will complete internal control, and if time permits, we will do some question also, that balance question also in business process. So with that, we will conclude today's session. So we will complete anyway internal control part, and time permits, we will do the questions. This is today's plan. So quickly we will go through what are the things we have discussed up to now under internal control. So, or as I mentioned already, you have altogether 12 topics in internal control. So 12 topics you have. First one, example. Without example only, I have mentioned here 12 topics. So first one is examples. So when it comes to internal controls, you should know about examples of internal controls. Already we discussed under business processes certain internal controls. So those internal controls are examples. So with keep that in your mind, you should learn other aspects of internal controls. So what are the other aspects? Already you know about internal control examples. If you take sales or purchase or cash management, PP, you know what are the examples of internal controls. What are the internal controls available in each processes. So those are the examples. Now you should be able to, after learning these 12 topics, you should be able to link those example to these 12 topics. That talent, that skill you should get after discussing these entire 12 topics in internal controls. That is the purpose of learning internal controls, which means other aspects of internal controls you should you should be able to explain another person. If anyone asks about the internal controls aspects or internal controls theory, you should be able to explain a third person after discussing these 12 topics. So first one, examples of internal controls, each processes already we discussed. Certain process I want to give, I will give separately. So each processes you should be able to provide examples of internal controls. That is first one. With that, why internal controls should be placed in the organization? That part we discussed. Why internal controls must be placed in the organization? What are the objectives are going to be achieved by implementing internal controls? What are the objectives? What are the objectives to be achieved by an organization by implementing an internal control? So those objectives we already discussed: enhance reliability of financial reporting, enhance effectiveness and efficiency of operation, business operation. Third one, ensure the compliance of applicable laws and regulations for the organization. These are the main objectives of internal controls. So whatever internal controls you learned under business process, which means examples of internal controls, you should, after discussing this internal controls objective, you should be able to link each and every internal controls examples to these objectives. If you take sales process, if you take purchase process, if you take a cash management process or PP management process, just list down the internal controls. And in order to get knowledge about the objectives, you should be able to link each and every internal control to the relevant objective. If we take sales process, majority of sales process internal controls are related to the financial reporting, raising invoices, approving dispatch notes, issuing dispatch notes, cross-checking dispatch notes, sales invoices and sales order, and approving invoices and generate receipts, approval receipts. So all these internal controls are related to financial reporting. When it comes to distribution companies or sales, if you take distributed company sales, distribution also part of the sales process. So whatever we learn under business process, sales and business process, general process only we have discussed. Let's take example. As I told, generating invoices, generating dispatch note, generating uh, receipt, those are related to financial controls. If we take sales distribution, let's take dispatch process of sales. If we take dispatch process, if that company is distribution company, that company wants motor vehicles or motor lorries to distribute their products to the customer or dealers. So for that purpose, they need motor vehicle. In order to distribute without any interruption, they need to maintain the motor vehicle in proper manner. To achieve that objective, at regular interval, they have to do the series. So that part will come under operational control in order to enhance the effectiveness and efficiency of the operation. let's say same same distribution company, sales process, distribution company, or manufacturing and distribution company. That company should have SLS standard uh, quality. So they have obtained SLS standard, SLS. So in order to maintain that SLS benefit, they have to maintain the quality up to that point. So in order to comply the SLS standard, they should implement certain controls. Those controls related to these objectives. Likewise, if you take any controls, those controls you can apply to one of these objectives. So that is the first, according to the theory, that is the first internal, that is the first topic we discuss under internal control. So examples I have not included here. I have not taken as a topic in the internal control, but as a first topic, you should be able to explain the examples of each processes. And most important thing we have discussed elements of internal controls. We have five elements: control environment, risk assessment, control activities, information communication, and monitoring. So last class, we have started to discuss the elements of internal control, and we have covered somewhere around 5 topics. We have been discussing this control activity now, control procedures. So rest of the topics we will discuss and complete today. Control environment. What is mean by control environment? This is the key elements out of these five. Control environment is environment which controls operate. That's a simple definition. What are the what are the points included? What are the points included in the control environment? Control environment refers board of directors, which means head of the organization's attitude, awareness of internal controls, their culture, their actions, their functions in relation to the internal control, whether strong or weak, whether they have positive attitude about the internal control or they don't have any interest about the internal control. First of all, in order to implement a successful internal control, first the base is control environment, because this control environment includes head of the operations. In simple manner, we can say board of directors. Board of directors, attitude, functions, actions, or their culture, their thought process in relation to the internal controls implementation. Whether they need strong control or they don't need strong control. If they want to implement strong control, then first of all they should think. That thinking they must try to implement with other supporters. First of all, they should think. They should have positive attitude about the internal controls implementation. That is the base. That is the foundation. Okay. So they should put strong foundation through this control environment. After that, with other elements support, they can implement strong internal controls. If they implement strong internal controls, they can achieve their intended objectives. Each and every internal control has intended objective. If they put strong base with other control elements, they can implement strong, successful internal control. Successful internal control, as I told last class, that is normal word. When it comes to technical word, effective and efficient of internal control. Whether effective and efficient internal control can be implemented in the organization. What is meant by effective and efficiency? If that internal control can achieve its intended objective, then that achievement called effective and efficiency of internal control. Clear? So after that, risk assessment we discussed. Risk assessment is straightforward thing. So impact of possible internal and external environment. external and internal risk we have to analyze, and based on that impact, with the frequency, how many times this risk can be taken place, risk can be occurred. That is one part, frequency of risk, probability of risk. And on the other hand, we should focus about the impact. Let's say one risk, let's say A risk can be taken place every month, 12 times, but impact is less. Then no issue. When it comes to risk, B risk is it will happen only once a year, but impact is very much higher than A risk. Then we have to focus more. So uh, organization should consider frequency of the risk, frequency of occurrence of the risk, and on the other hand, impact of the risk. So this analysis, this assessment called risk assessment. And control activities we have been discussing now as a separate topic, control procedures. So I will come to later that one. And finally, and the fourth main element is information and communication. So information and communication first, what are the things must be communicated and informed to? Uh, what are the what are the things should be communicated to employees of the organization, because employees play important role to implement the internal control. So what are the things organization should inform and communicate? First of all, risk, risk, and in order to mitigate the risk, what are the controls must be implemented. That part must be communicated. Risk and controls. Second one, roles and responsibilities of each and every employee in relation to the internal control implementation and internal control implementation. So first of all, risk and controls must be communicated, and their responsibility in relation to the controls must be communicated. So these things must be kept in your mind. And communication tools. Third topic, communication tools. How organization can communicate this information, risk controls, and roles and responsibilities of each and every employee. What are the tools they can use? So those tools, if you can remember just 3 tools, it's more than enough. Email, intranet, electronic notice boards. And under information communication, we discussed about whistleblowing. So I have explained last class whistleblowing. So independent person must be appointed by an organization to get illegal activities done by organization's employees. So that independent person will get information from the organization employee. If anyone involves illegal activity like bribe, example bribe, so that information must be taken from the employee's hand, that must be communicated to the relevant authorized person and whistleblower, which means that independent person should have responsibility to mitigate those type of fraud activities and make sure those things won't be happen in future. So independent person's main objective is collecting the information and keep informers details in secret manner. Okay, that's the most important thing. Informers details must be kept in secret manner. So he should not disclose his details. So then only employees will have confidence, and for employees will believe this communicating this information will not harm to their future, will not harm to their job environment, work environment. If they think, if they think this information, by providing this information, this will cause any bad environment, bad disadvantage to that employee, then that employee will not inform to the organization about this illegal activity. So that will give negative impact to the organization. In order to mitigate that negative impact, organization's point of view, organizations normally take decisions to appoint whistleblower. independent person. Then employees can tell any illegal activities done by their subordinates. Employees can tell without any doubt. They can tell to relevant person, that whistleblower, and whistleblower will inform to relevant authority person. And fifth one, monitoring. So under monitoring, we discuss about the outcome of review. Monitoring means review. Final responsibility of monitoring is with board of directors. So board of directors will perform the monitoring activity through management. Okay. So management independently or management itself can do the review, or else management will appoint internal auditors to perform the review. So reviews mean monitoring means review. So management should do the review at regular interval, and board of directors or audit committee should review at least once a year. So final responsibilities with directors. Okay, we will discuss this responsibility topic today. So you should keep in your mind important point. Final ultimate responsibility of internal control implementation is with board of directors. Okay, so if you want, you can make a short note. Most important point, final or ultimate responsibility. Just put a note and keep that record. Final ultimate responsibility is with board of directors. But board of directors will not do the activities, because then organization වල board of directors decision make කරනවා. ඒ decisions ටික implement කරන ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ පල්ලෙහා team එකක් ඉන්නවා. So they will implement whatever decisions they have taken to their team, which means management team. So ultimate responsibility is with board of directors, but board of directors will implement that those decisions with their team. Likewise, is internal controls ultimate responsibility also with board of directors. But board of directors will delegate the works to management. Okay, that's why reviews will be done by management. Management also can delegate the work to internal auditor. So internal auditor will report to the management, or else sometimes they may report to directly or directors. Okay. So outcome of review. We discussed last class. You should remember outcome of review and subsequent actions in relation to those reviews outcomes. You should remember. This is important point. You should remember. And third topic, we discuss about the types of internal controls. So there are two aspects, aspect 1 and aspect 2. Under first aspect, we have discussed financial control, operational controls, and compliance control. So under that, what is meant by financial control, what is meant by operational controls, and what is meant by compliance control, we discuss and with example. Okay. In this topic, you should remember definition of financial control, compliance control, and other operational controls, and examples also you should remember. That is aspect 1. Second aspect, we discuss type of controls. Second aspect, preventive, deductive, and corrective. What is meant by preventive? Last class, I have given example of payment process. So through example of payment process, I have explained what is preventive, what is deductive, and what is corrective. You should remember that point also. And with that, we concluded part A, first part of internal control. And second part, we have started with control procedures. So including control procedures, we have another 7 more topics. Today, we are going to complete those 7 topics. So internal control, under internal control procedures, there are 8 procedures. What is mean by control procedures? I want to tell one thing. Every class also I tell this one. Keep in your mind, whatever topics we are you are learning, we are discussing. That's the logic. Why we are learning? Why this topic we are learning? That you should understand. නිකන් exam එකට පාඩම් කරනවා වගේ නිකන් කටපාඩම් කරන්න එක තේරුමක් නෙමෙයි. So whatever topic you are learning, you should one point you should keep in your mind. Not only this subject, whatever subject. Why we are learning this topic? Half an hour before I told you have now you know about the examples of internal control. You know about the example of internal control. දැන් කවර කායින් හරි යවුවොත් ඔයගලන්ට කියන්න පුළුවන් නේ. Business process වල තියෙන internal controls මොනවද කියලා. So you can provide a few internal controls in relation to each and every business processes. That is okay. Fine. Why we are learning these other internal control topics? 12 topics are there. Why we are learning? The concept is you should learn, you should know about the other aspects of the internal control. Other areas in relation to the internal controls also you should aware, you should know. That is the purpose. So first 4 topics we discuss. Just link those 4 topics with the examples of internal control. First of all, you know the internal control examples. After that, you learn the objective of internal control. So examples of internal controls are there. Let's say 10 examples, 10 examples internal control, and those examples objective you should be able to connect. What's the objective of those examples? So each and every object, each and every examples, each and every internal control has intent objective. That intent objective you can relate to one of these main objectives. So second one, in order to achieve the successful internal control example, I'm now linking these examples and other aspects of whatever we have, other topics, whatever we learned so far. So examples are there. How those internal control examples, whenever I say examples, that is related, that is referred internal control. Okay. So internal control examples. Now, in order to make effective and efficient internal control, if your examples, if you want to become effective and efficient internal control, which means successful internal control, when you design, after design, when you implement or after implement, what are the things you should consider? Some components should have those internal controls. Okay. If that internal controls have those components, or if that internal controls are designed and implemented based on or after considering those components, then that internal control will become strong internal control, which means effective and efficient internal control. So that's why we learn control control components or elements. Okay, you should know in order to achieve. When you work at organization in future, you should know if you are in a let's say you you will face the situation to implement the internal controls. In that point, you should know before implementing, when you implement, or after implementing, you should consider these elements. If you consider these elements only, your objective can be achieved in relation to the internal control. That knowledge you should have. If let's say if you are an accountant, or you are a finance manager, or you are an internal auditor of the organization, or let's say you are a finance manager. As a finance manager, you should know in order to achieve the objectives of internal controls, in order to efficient and effective internal controls implementation, you should consider these main 5 elements. That knowledge you should have. If I consider these 5 elements only, I can achieve my objective in relation to the internal control. That point you should get. That's the objective of discuss internal control elements. After that, types of internal control. You should know what are the types. If you want to stop the error before happening, you have to implement preventive internal control. So if you want to detect certain errors, you should implement detective internal control. Okay, and after that, if you want to correct those errors, corrective internal controls. So types you should learn. And now we are discussing control procedures. So here you should know about controls categories. not types, controls categories. Whatever controls you are going to implement in the organization, those controls can be classified one of these 8 control activities. Clear? So here in control procedure, what is the objective of learning this control procedure? When you implement the controls in your organization, you are a finance manager, or you are the responsible person. Let's say you are the board of director. Let's say you are the director of one company in future. So at that point, you should know whatever control I'm going to implement to my management team, those controls will be classified out of one of these 8 control procedures. Okay, you can remember these control procedures in short forms, spam so. Okay, with that you can remember segregation of duties, physical controls, SRS and approval, management, supervision, organization, arithmetic accuracy, and personal controls. So here, most important thing, you can see any controls, any process controls. Okay, you can see one important control called segregation of duties. The Starma can remember segregation of duties is most important controls should be most important controls in the control activity. So in your last class also I told in your notebook, just put a note, segregation of duties is the most important related internal control. You can see, you can map it this one with your examples, what we have learned in the business process. If you want, you can map it. It's not it's not that much of difficult task. You can map it. If you can, if you take a sales process, segregation it is there. How you can map? How you can link that one? Let's say sales order is prepared by one person. Sales order is prepared by one person. Goods dispatch is one person. Invoice generating is one person, and invoice approval is one person. Okay, so more than 2 people are involved. That means that is called segregation of duties. Okay, if you take payment process prepared by one person, checked by one person, approved by one person, and payment by one person. So segregation duties there. So wherever you take, okay, whatever internal control process you take, you can map one thing. You can find one thing, segregation of duties. If seg remember, if segregation of duties is not there, means that is not proper internal control. Okay. Pota kita බලන්නකෝ දැන්. Let's imagine you know the controls. Let's say payment process is the easiest process. That's why I take a payment process. Just take payment process. Simple manner. Okay. Don't think too much. Payment process. Just imagine the payment process. Prepared by, checked by, authorized by, approved by, and check sign. Okay. Let's assume 4 controls are there. More than those 4 controls are there. But let just assume that those only 4 controls are there. Then control implement करना, prepare करना A, approve करना B, check करना B, approve करना C, and check payment will be signed by a director called D. Okay, 4 people are involved. Then imagine කරන්න මෙතන දෙකක් තියෙනවා. Just imagine. If you have any doubt, just ask me. ඉන්නවනේ කට්ටිය නැත්නම් login වෙලා ගිහලා ඉන්නේ. 34ක් වෙනවා. ඇත්තටම ඉන්න කට්ටිය කවුද කියලා දන්නේ නැහැ. Just imagine. Controls are there. Prepared by, signature must be placed. Checked by, one person signature must be placed. Approved by, signature must be placed. And authorized, check must be authorized by the authorized person, director. දැන් මෙතන elements දෙකක් තියෙනවා. දැන් අපි කියමුකෝ මේවා control prepared by, checked by, approved by, authorized by කියන්නේ control. Okay. දැන් ඒ control එක effective වෙන්නේ කොතනද? දැන් මම කියමු මම තමයි A කියලා. දැන් මම මේක prepare කරලා මමම check කරලා මමම approve කරලා මමම authorize කරනවා නම් control කියලා එක කියන්න බෑනේ ඒක. නිකන් නමට දාලා තියෙනවා control එක. Prepared by signature should be there. Prepared by checked by signature must be there. Approved by. එම තියෙනවා control. එක්කෙනෙක්ම දෙනවා දානවා නම් ඒ controls objective achieve වෙනවද? Controls are there. Prepared by signature must be placed, checked by signature must be placed. All these controls are there. Whether one thing you should remember, control will be will be a successful control. Normal control will be a successful control if that control achieves its intended objective. Clear? That must be remembered. Anywhere controls can be implemented. That is not a big deal. Anywhere any organization can implement the control. That's not a big deal. But become that controls that normal controls should become effective controls. Okay, that's the challenge. Successful controls. That's the challenge. So if if that normal control wants is want if organization wants to make that normal control into the successful control, then that normal control should always should achieve its intended objective. That if that control achieves its intended objective, then we can consider that control is the effective control. Okay, so in this our example, we have controls prepared by, checked by, authorized by, approved by, all controls are there. Approved by and authorized by, all controls are there. I'm not saying no, but whether this is effective and efficient control, that's a question mark. No, because if one person, same person does these all activities, you can't achieve that objective. What is the objective of approving the payment voucher? In order to mitigate the errors or mistakes in the payment. So if the same person does that all these transactions, whether the same person if the same person wants to do any fraud, whether the intended objective will be achieved. No, control is there, but that control is not effective, efficient control. So in order to make the control effective and efficient, then this segregation of duties play plays vital role in the internal control process. So segregation of duty is most important control activity. So next control activity we discuss about the physical control. We have two types of physical controls. One type is protection of asset. Another type is existence of asset. Protection of assets. I have given certain examples: CCTV fixing CCTV cameras, employed security guard. Those are the physical controls. Existent controls whether as of the particular date whether assets are existed. Okay, whether assets are exist. Inventory, PP, whether those assets are exist. So if you want to check that existence, those controls will come. Those controls will be considered as actual existence of an asset. And authorization approval, it's a simple one. If any person involves in approval process, authorization process, those controls will come under this topic. Management controls. With this only we have stopped last class. Management controls, basically business review performance, business performance review. I have given example last class is budget and actual for actual comparisons. Budget figures and actual figures comparisons. So they should compare first and they should find the reasons if negative impact is there, any reasons they have to find, and they have to decide, they have to make strategies to overcome from that deviations, negative deviations. This is called business performance review. This is a summary of this theory. And today we will start with supervision controls. Supervision controls are supervision of day-to-day activities by employees. Normally, you can imagine these factory employees are there. No, if every manufacturing companies they have employees, factories. So because manufacturing process is taking place in the factory, so in the factory employees are there. So organization should appoint a supervisor to supervise the employees. That also control. So that controls will be considered as supervision controls. Clear? So you can give that example. Factory employees are supervised by supervisor. That is the one control. That is also type of control. One of the controls. Those type of controls will come under supervision controls. Organization controls. Organization controls are provided by organization structures such as lines of reporting, lines of authority and responsibility for managers in each position in organization. Hierarchy දෙනවා කියලා කියනවනේ. Organization structure එකකින් තියෙන hierarchy තියෙනවනේ. Reporting lines දෙක තියෙනවා. Then if you take finance department organization structure, finance director is the head of that department. Finance director is head of that department. So under finance director, financial control is there. Under FC, financial controller, finance manager is there. Under finance manager, senior accountant, assistant accountant, and uh, under finance manager, senior accountant should report finance manager. Under senior accountant is there. Under accountant, assistant accountant. Under assistant accountant, accounts executives are there. So this is the finance department hierarchy. So first of all, they have to design that hierarchy, and roles and responsibility of each person must be communicated, and reporting line is also given through this hierarchy. Those type of controls come under organization control. And seventh control, arithmetical and accounting records. To check correct and accurate recording and processing transactions. For example, reconciliation and trial balances. Then our arithmetic accuracy එක කොහොම බලනවද reconciliation බලන එකට මොනවද reason එක? Whether any deviations are there in between bank statement and cash book. Whether any deviations, any differences are there between cash book and bank statement. Why we should compare that one? In order to match both cash book and bank statement. So that will come under arithmetical and accounting records. If you do that type of controls, those controls will come under arithmetical and accounting controls. And last one, personal controls. What is meant by personal controls? If company provides any training activities or training to their employees, through that training, the company can enhance their quality and skills. What's the purpose of giving training to employees? Employees should get more skills and talent on their relevant area. So training also internal control. By providing the training, what's the objective organization can achieve? If they provide training, then employees will get skills and talent and knowledge. With that knowledge will convert into successful output. Through that output, organization can achieve a lot of benefits. So this is the objective of organization. So if, let's say, for example, if we take a service organization, like let's say example, accounting firm provides services to their clients, accounting outsource, bookkeeping services. Let's take example, bookkeeping services. They are maintaining bookkeeping, and they are entering journal entries. They are preparing financial statements. Likewise, they are giving bookkeeping services, maintaining bookkeeping services to their clients, and accounting related services to their clients, accounting outsource. So that's the organization product. Finally, you should prepare the finance statements, and you should evaluate the finance statement of your client, and you should give value addition to the client. So this is the objective of organization. So in order to achieve this objective and maximize the profit. So in order to achieve this objective, what are the basic things they should do? What are the basic What is the basic thing organization should do? First of all, in order to improve the quality output, they should improve the skill, talent, knowledge of the employees. Then only employee will deliver proper financial statements and value addition to the client. So in order to achieve that objective, organization should give organization to enhance the skill and talent of their employees in relation to the subject matter. What is the subject matter? Accounting, accounts and finance statement preparation. Maintenance accounts and preparation of finance statement. So they have to enhance the skill, knowledge of their employees. Then only they can achieve this final product, quality final product. So if they want to enhance the skills and knowledge of their employees, what shall they do? They should provide training, seminars, accounting standard seminars, financial statement related preparation related seminars, and taxes, VAT and SSCL, income tax, WST. So that also should be considered. Should be uh, that the services also should be delivered by the accountant. Okay, indirect taxes or direct taxes, income tax, WST, VAT and SSCL. So those taxes also accountant job. Okay. ඒමතන එපා දැන් කරුණට වැඩ තියෙන්නේ just accounting related ඒවා විතරක් තමයි understand කරන්න ඕනේ කියලා. මේ misunderstand කරන්න එපා. දැන් ඕගොල්ලන් in future if you want to work in organization, you should know about the taxes, income tax, VAT, SSCL, WHT, those taxes also you should aware. Taxes තියෙනවනේ මේ මම හිතන්නේ මේ taxes තියෙනවා ඇති ඕගොල්ලන්ටත්. So why you are learning taxes? So if you want to become a successful finance manager or finance director or finance controller of the organization in future, then you should aware about these things. Accountant के job එක just account prepare කරලා නිකන් තියෙන එක විතරක් නෙමෙයි. Accountant should prepare the finance statements and accountant should give value addition to the company. With that, accountant should have knowledge about the VAT and SSCL and other taxes, direct and indirect taxes. So if that particular BPO, accounting outsource company, wants to achieve the quality output from their employees, what should they do? They should train their employees. They should provide training. What type of training? Financial statement preparation training, accounting standard training, indirect taxes training, they should provide. By providing the training to the employees or their staff, through that, they can increase the quality of output. When they increase the quality of output, they will get more clients and they can maximize the profit. So this is the objective. So this is also personal controls. Not only training, when you are recruiting the employees also, you should consider the experience and knowledge also. If you recruit best person, then you will get output from best output from him. Clear? So when you are recruiting a good person, when you are doing the recruitment process, always you should think you should get an experienced, knowledgeable person. Then only you will get expected output from him. Clear? So recruitment process and training process, those will come under personal controls. So with that personal controls also, control procedure is over. Next topic, sixth topic is inherent limitation of internal control. Inherent limitation of internal control. Carefully listen. This is also most important topic when it comes to internal control. Before discussing this reasons or inherent limitations of internal control, I want to brief certain thing. I don't know whether you have noticed or not. Here, take an internal. If you take an organization, let's say you are an internal auditor. Just imagine, before discussing these inherent limitations, uh, we should discuss this one first. Let's say you are an internal auditor, or let's say assume, imagine you are an internal auditor. One company has asked you to uh, provide internal control procedures, and they ask the report. You are internal auditor. One company has approached you to provide the report of internal control of their organization, effective and efficiency of their internal control. So basically, this is the monitoring activity. So now you are internal auditor. Now you are going to perform the internal audit of that particular organization. Through that internal audit, you are going to achieve whether these companies' internal controls are effective and efficient in effective manner they have implemented. So now you should give the report. If you take business processes, if you take a business process of that particular organization, you can't limit business process with one or two processes. So we have studied only few business processes, like 6 business processes we have studied. It doesn't mean company has only 6 processes. If you take finance statements, you can find lot of processes in the organization. Sales process also business process, purchase process also business process, likewise cash management, bank reconciliation is one of the cash management internal control, and payroll process, PP process, inventory process, likewise main process also there. On the other hand, some other sub process also there. You take process of the organization. Let's say this stepler pins ഒക്കെ തന്നോണേ. Stepler and stepler pins. Buying stepler pins also business process, and consumption of those stepler pins also business process. Okay. දැන් ඔයාලට එහෙම කියන්න බෑනේ ඒක business process එකක් නෑ කියලා. ඒක process එකක් company එකෙන් තියෙන මේ so not we can say business process. Just that's also process. Okay. Forget about the business process. Or forget about the word called business. Just imagine processes involved in the organization. Processes involved in the organization. Sales also process, purchase also process. On the other hand, stapler pin purchase and consumption also process, and envelopes purchasing and consumption of those envelopes also process. On the other hand, A4 purchases, A4 sheets purchases and consumption of A4 sheet also processes. So likewise, if you see processes or activities involved in the organization, we can't limit. Okay, we can't limit with numbers. So you can find lot of processes in the organization. So here, if you take processes involved in the organization, sales also process. On the other hand, purchasing stapler pins and consumption of stapler pins also process. Clear? So that concept, that part is clear. If you take processes of the organization, main processes like sales and purchase also we should consider as a process. On the other hand, stapler pin purchase and consumption, and envelopes purchase and consumption, and A4 sheets consumption and purchase and consumption also we can take it as a process of the organization. Okay. Now, organization has asked you to perform the internal audit, and they have asked a report of their processes. So here you will not check about small processes. Okay. You want to check about the small processes. like this developing and uh, this envelopes purchase and consumption. Okay, let's assume developing consumption, purchase and consumption, and envelopes purchase and consumption. So you will not check these processes, okay, because that's like a time consuming. On the other hand, organizations also generally organization organizations also do not implement the internal controls for these processes. Clear? First of all, they should implement the controls not to evaluate the control effective and efficiency. So organizations also do not implement strong controls, strong or weak controls. Normal organizations also normally they don't implement controls for these processes, this develop in purchase and consumption and envelopes purchase and consumption. Okay. Then if you take controls of processes, first point you should remember, if you take controls of process in the organization, lot of controls and processes are there. Okay. Forget about the controls. Let's just keep in your processes. Lot of processes are there in the organization. Lot of processes. Just for discussion purpose, in order to understand purpose, just imagine lot of processes are there in the organization, like sales and purchase main processes. On the other hand, step up in consumption. Okay, just imagine these two processes, step up in and sales and purchase process. These three processes. These are the processes. First of all, organization should implement internal controls for these processes, all these processes, step up in consumption and sales and purchases. Implementing controls in sales and processes are okay, because those are the major processes. By incurring cost, implementing implementing controls are worth, because those are main processes. When it comes to this envelope and step up in purchase and consumption, implementing controls also will incur some cost. After incurring some cost and implementing the controls, the question is whether that control will give incremental benefit to the company or not. If you implement, if that company implement controls in sales, purchase, cash management, inventory, and PP, then first of all they should incur some cost, either time or either monetary cost or whatever cost they should first incur. After that only they can implement the controls. They should incur cost, no some other cost they have to incur, no. So first they should incur the cost and they should implement the control. If they incur cost and if they want to implement the control, they should have an incremental benefit. They should have a, not incremental, they should have a benefit more than the cost. Okay, they should have benefit more than the cost. So whether is it worth to implement controls to these small processes like envelope purchase and develop in purchase and consumption? If they implement the controls also, they need to incur cost, but benefit received from those internal controls are not worth, because not worth to their cost. So normally companies, even though they have lot of processes, minor and major processes, normally company won't implement controls by incurring cost, and they won't implement controls for their small processes, because incurring cost and implementing controls for those small processes won't give benefit than cost. Okay. So likewise, then they won't implement the control for small processes. So likewise, some other reasons are there why we cannot give absolute assurance on internal controls. Okay. What is mean by absolute assurance and reasonable assurance? What is mean by absolute assurance and reasonable assurance? So I have just short while ago I have given example. Companies Normally companies do not implement internal controls for small processes. Why? They should incur cost. If they incur cost and implement the internal controls, those internal controls benefits will not exceed the cost. Then no point to implement the internal controls, because if they, let's say, assume, let's say, take these two scenarios, they do not, one company has not implement the control in step up in consumption and purchase and consumption. Another company has incur the cost and some internal control cost, and they have implemented the controls in step up in process. Okay, so A company, they have not incurred, but because of non-available of internal control, let's say they are going to, in monetary terms, let's say I will example with the monetary terms, they are going to lose 1,000 rupees, let's say per month 1,000 rupees. Monetary term I can explain. They are going to incur 1,000 rupees. Okay, they are going to incur 1,000 rupees. So A company did not implement the controls in relation to step up in consumption. If they have, if they do not implement the controls, maximum risk they will lose per month 1,000 rupees. Okay, then 1,000 rupees. Okay, fine. If they want to be company now, if they want to implement the control, they should incur 1,500. Okay, or they should incur 2,000 or 2,500. Let's say 2,500. Let's say 2,500. In order to implement the internal control, they should incur 2,500. So incurring 2,500 and saving 1,000 is the beneficial or benefit to the company, or without putting any control by incurring 2,500, losing 1,000 is benefit to the company or not? First scenario is benefit. So because, yeah, what I'm trying to say is incurring cost to implement control is more than benefit what we are getting from that control. In such situation, no point to implement those controls. Clear? So that is better than, but that is better. Not implementing control is better than implementing controls with incurring more cost than benefit. No point. Okay. So the concept is companies, normally organizations are not implementing controls. They normally they do not implement the controls for small processes, because small process implementing controls for small processes have more cost than benefit. Then no point. Okay, then no point to implement the controls. So likewise, some of the reasons also there why they are not why we can't give absolute assurance. We can't give absolute assurance on the internal control effectiveness. So let's say make a theory another, make concept take make concept take okay. I didn't finish the inherent limitations things. I just gave an example. So what I'm trying to say is why we can't give 100% assurance. Why we can't give 100% assurance on internal controls. So if we take an organization internal control, let's assume that company has 50 internal 50 processes, including step up in purchase and envelope purchases and consumption. Okay, including that organization has 50 processes. Clear? If you take an organization, that organization has 50 processes, including step up in and envelope purchase and consumption. On the other hand, sales, inventory, major process also. All that company has 50 processes. Out of that 50 processes, my question is, does that company implement controls for all 50 processes or only for certain processes? Question is, does that company implement controls for entire 50 processes or including envelope and step in purchase and consumption, or they will implement only for the major processes? කොහොම ප්‍රශ්නයකට උත්තර එන්නේ නැහැ නේ. ක්ලාස් එකෙම එන්නේ නැහැ නේ. මෙතන තියන්නේ මම එක්ස්පෙක්ට් කරන්න බෑනේ කොහොමද උත්තර එන එක. So example is 50 processes are there including sales, including purchase of step in, and sometimes some companies have uh, purchase control. It's through that purchase control, some companies may have controls for this envelope and step in, but consumption also one process. No, consumption, for consumption they don't put controls because cost is higher than the benefit. Cost is higher than the benefit. So here, let's assume organization has 50 controls. Organization has 50 controls, including step in purchase and envelope purchases. And on the other hand, sales like sales purchase, major process also there. My question, whether they will implement controls for entire 50 process or they will only implement major processes. Answer is they won't consider about the small processes because cost is higher than the benefit. So no point to implement controls by incurring cost and implement controls for small processes. Clear? So they won't implement controls for small processes. Then let's say 3 processes like that. Out of 50, 3 processes they did not, for 3 processes they did not implement the controls. Let's assume 3 processes they did not implement the controls. So 47 processes they implement the controls, 3 processes they did not implement the controls. This is the scenario. So in such situation, are we in a position to give this company internal this company's internal controls? Okay, this company's internal controls, this company's entire processes related internal controls are implemented properly. Whether we are in a position to give this type of assurance. These companies, let's assume 50 processes are there. Out of these 50 processes, internal controls have been implemented only for 47 processes because of reasons, this cost and benefit reason. So now we are the internal auditors, or we are the third party, or let's say now we are giving the assurance on their internal controls. So my question, are we in a position to give stating that this company has 100%, this company has implemented controls in their process, control in their 100% controls in their entire process, and those entire processes are effectively work? Are we in a position to give that one? Because they have implemented only 47 processes out of 50. So then in that situation, whether are we in a position to give this company has implemented internal controls for all their processes? We can't give because they have not implemented controls for 3 processes. Clear? So in such situation, we are not in a position to give 100% assurance because 3 processes are out. Out of that 50 process, 3 processes are out. They did not implement controls. So then how we can give 100% assurance? So we can't give 100% assurance. That 100% assurance called absolute assurance. So we can't give absolute assurance on internal control. Okay. Then what is mean by reasonable assurance? So this reasonable assurance and absolute assurance, we will discuss in the audit also. Okay. In that point, I will explain in detail what is meant by reasonable assurance. Okay. For the time being, just understand reasonable assurance is not 100% assurance. Okay. For the time being, just keep in your mind, reasonable assurance is not 100% assurance. Okay, because out of 50 processes, 47 processes only have internal controls. Three processes do not have internal controls. So in such situation, we can't give 100% assurance. We can't say this company has implemented internal controls in their entire processes and those are working effectively. We can't say like that. So absolute assurance is out. So we can give only reasonable assurance. Okay. For the timing, just remember in internal control, we can give absolute assurance. We can give only reasonable assurance. Okay. I hope you have understood this why we can't give no absolute assurance. One, I have taken only one example, cost versus benefit, because for certain processes, if you want to implement internal controls, we can't get benefit over cost. Okay, so we no point to implement controls for those type of processes. So better to ignore internal control for those type of processes because cost is more than benefit. So because of that, companies normally they do not implement controls for small processes. So in such situation, as an internal auditor or reviewer of internal control, we can't give 100% assurance on company's internal controls because they did not implement controls for certain processes. Then how we can give 100% assurance? We can't give. So we can give reasonable assurance. This is one reason, cost versus benefit. First one, yeah, this one cost versus benefit. There's a one reason for why we cannot give absolute assurance. Okay, clear? And second one, what is the second reason why we can't give absolute assurance? Because let's say second scenario, out of that all small or okay, let's say 50, same example you can take, okay? Same example you can take. First scenario, 50 processes are there. Out of that 50 processes, company has implemented internal controls only for 47 processes. So then as a reviewer of internal control, we can't give absolute assurance because three processes are out. Then we can't say 100% internal controls are implemented effectively. Okay, that is clear, ne? I hope clear. Okay, if you have any doubt, personally or in group, you can ask any doubt. Okay, no issue. If if if, if you can't ask in the group, just send personal message through WhatsApp or message. I will answer or give a call. I can explain. I can clear your doubt. So just take example, this 50 and 47, this example, and apply to this inherent limitation of internal control theory. So first one, cost versus benefit, I have taken 50 processes are there in the company. Out of that 50 processes, 47 processes only they have implemented the internal controls. Why? If they implement internal controls for those three processes, it won't give benefit. It won't give benefit over cost. So that part I have explained. That part has covered first point, cost versus benefit. Simple theory, a simple logic, a simple example is this stapler purchase and consumption. On the other hand, envelope purchase and consumption. Okay, example you can remember. Second one, the same example. With the same example, we will discuss this topic, inherent limitation. Let's say 50 processes are there. Out of that 50 processes, 47 processes are having internal controls. Okay, out of that 47 process also, let's say strong internal controls are there. Okay, maximum strong internal controls are there. Segregation of duties is there, arithmetic accuracy controls are there, approval controls are there, all controls are there. We have not identified any we have not identified any weakness in those controls. Okay, those processes. But in that situation also we can't give 100%. Why? දැන් ඕගලන්ට එක්සෑම් එකෙන් 100 මාක්ස් ගන්න පුළුවන්ද? කොච්චර ලිව්වත් 100 මාක්ස් ගන්න පුළුවන්ද? ඕගලන්ට එක්සෑම් එකෙන් කොච්චර ලිව්වත් දැන් A+ ගන්න ඕන වුණත් you can get 97 or 98. 1 or 2 marks you will lose. Okay. Why? දැන් 100 marks අන්තිමට ගත්ත දවස කවදද? මොන ඒජ් එකෙන්ද ගත්තේ? 100 marks එක? For me, I got grade 1 or 2. ඊට පස්සේ ගත්තේ නෑනේ. ඊට පස්සේ 100 marks කවදාවත් ගත්තේ නෑනේ. Extraordinary brilliant student වුණත් 99, 98, 97 එනවා. ඇයි? Because without our knowledge also we make some mistakes. Okay, that's the nature. ඒක වැරදි නෙමෙයි. That's the human nature. Okay, without our knowledge also දැන් ඔයා ඔයාගේ ලයිෆ් එකේ කොච්චර ටැලන්ට් පර්සන් වුණත් කොච්චර එක්ස්ට්‍රාऑඩිනරි බ්‍රිලියන්ට් පර්සන් වුණත් ඔයාගේ ලයිෆ් එකෙන් ඔයා ගන්න හැම ඩිසිෂන් එකම 100% ඕකේ වෙනවද? නෑනේ. උතනවත් 100% ඕකේ වෙන්නේ නෑනේ. කවවත් කටත් බෑනේ එහෙම. So why? That's the human nature. Okay? That's the human nature. So that we can't avoid. That we can't say every person has 100% perfect person. Okay? We can't say under every we can't find 100% perfect person. Okay? So we can't find. So what is that meaning? Which means difficult. That's a human nature. 100% perfect person අපිට දකින්න බෑනේ. දැන් ඔයා ලයිෆ් එකකින් ගන්න හැම ඩිසිෂන් එකම 100% ඕකේ වෙනවද? ඔයාට 100% මාක්ස් එක ගන්න පුළුවන්ද? බෑ. 90 at least 95, 96, 97 only you can get. Because that's 2, 3, 4 marks. Without your knowledge you lose. So that is called human error. Okay? කොච්චර හොඳ controls තිබ්බත් කොච්චර හොඳ control strong තිබ්බත් whatever controls you implement, it doesn't matter. Human errors can be taken place. Human errors can be taken place. Whatever controls you implemented, human errors can be taken place. So that we can't avoid. That's a nature. Okay, that's a human nature. So let's say 100 controls, 50 controls are there. Out of that 50 controls, 47 controls only. 40, or out of that 50 processes, 47 processes only we have controls. So out of that 47 processes also, we can't say without any mistake those processes are implemented and executed. We can't say. Some errors can be there. It can be material or immaterial. That is secondary. Okay. It can cause a huge harm to the organization, or it can cause minimal harm to the organization. Let's say, assume it may cause minimum harm to the organization, even though that is harm. No, ඒ harm එක නිසා ඒ organization millions වල loss එකක් එන්නේ නැහැ ඒ organization වලට. Okay, if we take monetary terms, millions of losses එකක් එන්නේ නැහැ. හැබැයි අපි කියමු රුපියල් 100ක් loss එකක් එනවා කියන. ඒක ඒ company එකට harm නැහැ. billion turnover වෙන company එකකින් රුපියල් 100ක් loss එක වෙන එක harmයක් නැහැ. Okay, but that is also error, no? So that's also error. We can't say 100% all are perfect. Out of that 47 controls also 100% controls are implemented perfectly. We can't say like that. So that 100 rupees loss also minus. It will reduce some percentage. Let's say 0.5 percentage. Okay, 0.5 percentage. There also we can't say these controls are 100% perfect. There also we can't say absolute assurance. We can't give absolute assurance. Got it? Let's say because of this small human error, because of this small human error, this company may lose 100 rupees. Okay. But that is also harm to the company. Not big harm, but loss ne, podi loss එකක් නේ. ඒ කියමුකෝ ඒක percentage වල මේක කියනවා නම් 0.5 percentage. So 99.5% is okay, but 0.5% is wrong. Then because of this human error, then we can't give 100% assurance. So that is also reason why we can't give 100% assurance. Inherent limitation. Inherently තියෙන weakness or limitations කියලා කියන්න පුළුවන්. Limitations. Okay? So human error. Third one, collusion. Okay. Then අපි කියමුකෝ segregation of duties. Then segregation of duties, let's say the particular company has implemented strong segregation of duties. Uh, five people have involved, five staff have involved in that one process, and good segregation of duties are there. Good segregation duties is there. Let's say five people involved in the payment process. Can we say, okay, why we are implementing segregation of duties control? If one person, we have learned, no, one person cannot perform two key tasks. If he performs two key tasks, then he may involve the fraudulent activity. That's the reason. So if we increase the segregation of duties, number of staff in segregation of duties, then that may reduce the fraud. Okay. There also I didn't mention it may eliminate, it will eliminate the fraud. Okay. I didn't mention it will eliminate the fraud. There also I mentioned it may reduce the fraud. It will reduce the fraud, mitigate the fraud. 100% fraud will be eliminated කියලා අපිට කියන්න බෑ. It will reduce. So let's say company has five staff in they have involved company has involved five staff in the payment process. Okay, in the payment process. So after involving five staff in the payment process, we can ensure okay, they can have believe in some extent these five staffs will not make any mistakes or they will not make any fraudulent activity in this process. Because let's say A, B, C, D, E, five staffs are there. So if A involves in the fraudulent activity or A involves A and B involves in the fraudulent activity, they can't do more work because third activity will be done by C. Fourth activity will be done by D. Fifth activity will be done by E. So beyond the second activity, they can't do their fraud activity. They can't do their fraud activity after second activity because first activity and second activity they can involve because A and B together involve fraudulent activity and A has done mistake. Intentionally he has done mistake and second person also involved. Beyond that, they can't do their fraudulent activity because C and D, E are there. Okay. So if more segregation duties is there, then you can reduce fraudulent activities. This is the first scenario. Let's take second scenario. Now, A, B, C, D, E, all five people involved together and make fraudulent activity. Okay, that is called collusion. Okay, that is called collusion. There are rare, there's a rare chance, but that is also can be happen. First scenario, A and B involved in the fraudulent activity, but because of this strong segregation of duties control, they can't carry their fraudulent activity to third activity because third activity has been done by C. So he has not involved in this fraudulent activity. Then there are mistakes, intentional fraud activity will be stopped in third process. It will be corrected in third process. Whatever they made intentionally, whatever mistakes they made intentionally, those mistakes will be corrected in third process because from C onwards, they have not involved this, they have not involved in what you call this fraudulent activity. Okay, that's why segregation, power of segregation of duties. Second scenario, A, B, C, D, E, all five people together and they involved in fraudulent activities. That is also, that's a possibility. That is all, that's also possibilities there. Okay, that type of possibility also there. all 5 people together, they may involve in the fraudulent activity. That activity called collusion. Okay, where two or more people cooperate to get around the internal control system, the collusion might be to carry out a fraud. The greater the segregation of duties, highlight this word, keep in your mind, the greater the segregation of duties, the greater the number of people who need to collude. Okay, what is mean by this sentences? What is meant by this sentence? What's the meaning you can take from this sentence? The greater the segregation of duties, the greater the number of people who would need to collude. I have given two scenarios. Scenario A, scenario A, 5 people involved, 2 people only involved in the fraudulent activity. Their fraudulent activity will be stopped at third point because third activity is done by C. So they can't carry on their fraudulent activity further. Why? Because five people, because 5 people have involved in that activity. Let's assume only 2 people have involved in that activity. Assume only 2 people. Okay, only 2 people have involved in this activity. 5 people have involved in first scenario. 2 people have involved only second scenario. In first scenario, after second point, they can't do their fraudulent activity because third person has stopped. Second scenario, let's say only 2 people are there. So that is also segregation of duty. 2 people involved also segregation of duty. We can't say that is not a segregation of duty. That is also segregation of duty. But 2 people, they together and they can do collusion easily. Okay. If 2 people are there, those 2 people can involve and together and they can do easily collusion, fraud activity. If 5 people are there, they may face difficulty to take other 3 people also for their collusion. Okay, that's the meaning is given in this sentence. The greater the segregation of duties, the greater of number of people who would need to collude. Okay, so collusion can also be happen. Because of that, we can't give 100% assurance. Management override or bypass. I will give an example and explain this point. Management override and bypass. Let's assume ABC Private Limited. That ABC Private Limited has approved supplier list. In the purchase process, we will discuss now. Companies can purchase raw materials or their goods from the approved supplier list. Okay, that's also control. If they want to make the purchase, they should make the purchase from approved supplier who is already approved by the authorized person in the organization. So they can pick the approved supplier from they can pick the supplier from the approved supplier list and they can make the order. So here, let's say the company ABC Private Limited has five suppliers in the approved list. Immediately they got order from their customer. That order must be delivered within couple of days. Okay, immediately they got order. The scenario, just imagine the scenario that with this scenario, I will explain this management override or bypass. ABC Private Limited is following strict control, internal control. Whatever purchases they should make, that purchases should be made from approved supplier list. 5 approved suppliers are there. 5 approved suppliers are there. So now ABC Private Limited has obtained an order from their customers, one of their main customer. That order must be proceeded within 2 days. Now those 5 approved suppliers are not in a position to deliver the order, deliver the raw material, because in order to deliver the order day after tomorrow within couple of days, today you have to, or tomorrow you have to, at least within 2 days, you have to finish off your order. So in order to finish your order within 2 days, today itself you need raw materials to do the manufacture. Clear? So if අද ඕගොල්ලන් raw materials ටික ගත්තොත් විතරයි ඕගලන්ට order එක හෙට complete කරන්න පුළුවන්. So that's the situation. You are in that type of situation. So those approved suppliers, those 5 approved suppliers are not in a position to deliver the raw materials today. එතකොට එහෙම approved suppliers ලා order එක දෙන්නේ නැහැ කියලා අපිට sale එක කරන්න තියෙන පුළුවන්ද? What will happen if you do not sell, if we do not sell the product to the customer? Sometimes, first point, we will lose the sale. Sometimes that customer may go to another service provider or another seller. So in long term, we will lose that customer also. Clear? The scenario is clear now. I hope this scenario is clear. Approved supply list in a customer supplies la, they are not in a position to supply the raw materials today itself to deliver that order. Okay, to start the manufacture process. So now management decided we are not going to take this order. We are not going to purchase raw materials from that particular approved suppliers. We are going to select another 6 supplier and we are going to purchase from that supplier. But approval process of that supplier, approval of that supplier will take much time, because let's say today 10 o'clock, before 1 o'clock you should purchase the raw material to start the manufacturing process. That's the situation. If you want to start the manufacturing process today, you need raw materials. If we can start the process today or only you can deliver the goods tomorrow, day after tomorrow, then you need to start the process today. So to make that approval process, you don't have time. If you want to take that customer to your approved list, that approval process takes some time. So now you don't have that much of time to take that approval process. Okay. But in a good faith, you are selecting that customer and you are selecting that supplier and immediately you are going to purchase the raw materials to start the manufacturing process. So what was happened here? The company has set of internal controls. What's the internal controls in the purchase process? One of the internal controls is they should make the purchase from the approved supplier list. Okay, that's the internal control. So in this situation, you can't select from the approval supplier list. You can't select from the approval supplier list. On the other hand, you don't have enough time to get that new supplier to approved list also, because that approval process takes some time. So now in a good faith, without approving that supplier, you will directly purchase your raw material from that supplier with the good faith. What is the good faith? If I receive these raw materials only, I can deliver the order to the customer day after tomorrow. So now management bypass the controls, bypass this approved suppliers control with good faith. Okay. ඒක හාමයක් නැහැ කම්පැනි එකට. ඒක දැන් මේ order එක ගන්න තැන තමයි හාම එක වෙන්නේ. ඒක හාමයක් නැහැ කම්පැනි. good faith එකෙන් තමයි කරේ. bypass කරලා තියෙන්නේ. But when it comes to internal control procedures, good faith or bad faith, whatever, that control is breached. Okay, that control is bypassed. එමනේ තියෙන්නේ. එතකොට can we give 100% assurance on this type of controls? Can you give 100% absolute assurance? If this happen, we can't give, because certain point management may override the controls in a good faith. Okay. So in such situation, if these type of situations are happen, what is the output in internal control? Internal control is bypassed. Okay, internal control is bypassed. So then we can't give absolute assurance. This is also one of the reasons. And fifth one, non-routine transaction. With that, I will give the break. Uh, non-routine transaction. So in the non-routine transaction means most of the cases, internal controls are implemented for routine transactions. Non-routine transactions they don't normally consider because those transactions are happen rarely. If you take property plant and equipment sales process, normally property plant and equipments are sold at scrap value. Those scrap value are normally small value. Okay, purchasing property plant and equipment is routine transaction, and maintaining property plant and equipment is also routine transaction. When it comes to selling property plant and equipment, it's not a routine transaction, it's a non-routine transaction. Even though that is non-routine transaction, and that value also sometimes organization may sell at scrap value, small value. In the scrap value, it's not a big value to the organization, so implementing the controls for that scrap value sales also not worth to the organization. This is the normal general practice. But when it comes to but when it comes to some cases, in some cases, property plant equipments also sold at huge value. Okay, some cases, property plant equipment also can be sold at huge value. So since we don't have strong control for disposal of property plant equipment, when you sell property plant equipment at huge amount because of controls are not implemented, you may not get proper price for that figure, that asset. Okay, you may not get proper price for that amount because you don't have internal controls. On the other hand, sometimes recording process also you may sale recording process also you may face some difficulties. Okay, sometimes this recording process may have some errors. Sometimes these recordings cannot be happen also because of non-availability of internal controls. Scrap value sales are scrap PP disposals will be taken place at scrap value. Scrap value is not a huge thing to the organizations. So implementing the controls for this PP disposal is not worth to the organization if it is sold at scrap value. But certain scenarios, certain situations, company may sell their property plant equipment at huge price. In such situation, if they don't implement the controls, then they won't they may sometimes they may not get proper price for that asset. That is also internal control weakness. On the other hand, after selling the item, those sales process also, there's a chances that sales process also will not be recorded properly in the books because of non-availability of internal controls. So these are the five main inherent limitations why we cannot give absolute assurance. Why we can give only reasonable assurance. So you should remember all these five. This is the key point, key topic in the internal control. So you should remember these 5 points with explanation. Clear? With that, we will have a break and we will start the session again 10:30. You can mark your attendance. I will give 3 minutes. So mark and just confirm. After that, we will start the session. Okay, we'll continue session. We completed 6 topics in internal control. So now we will move on to 7th topic. We have another 6 topics. We will quickly go through those topics and we will conclude the internal control today itself. So 7th topic is internal control risk. 6th topic we discuss about internal control limitation, and 7th topic is internal control risk. What is the risk? What is mean by risk? I'm asking the question not in relation to the internal control. Generally, general question. Generally, what is mean by risk? What is the risk of uh, what is the risk of your examination in relation to your exam? What is the risk you have? Fail or pass. If you fail the exam, that's a risk. So here Risk means generally, I'm not talking about internal control. I will come internal control later. So generally, risk means if you want to achieve something and barriers or restrictions or barriers, obstacles, barriers or obstacles available in this process, in that process, and those barriers and obstacles will affect you to achieve that particular objective. In simple terms, barriers and obstacles to achieve the target. Okay, in simple, you can define risk means barriers and obstacles to achieve something. Okay, so it's called risk. Because of that barriers and obstacles, if you fail to achieve that target, all target means risk. So reason for failure, risk. So generally, definition for risk is barriers and obstacles. So barriers and obstacles to achieve something, those barriers and obstacles considered as a risk. Clear? Barriers and obstacles we call normal risk. Those barriers and obstacles will disturb to your objective. Those barriers and obstacles will affect to your objective. That barriers and obstacles we can consider as a risk. Fail to achieve something. Because of those barriers and obstacles, you have failed to achieve your objective. That is called risk. Okay. I hope understood. If you don't understand, let me know. I will explain further. So likewise, internal controls also. Likewise, that's a common, what I have explained now, that's the common definition for risk. If you fail to achieve your objective because of barriers and obstacles in the your process, those that is called risk. Fail to achieve something. If you fail your examination, that is risk. What are the causes? What are the reasons? What are the factors influence you to fail the examination? එළියේ ඉඳලා එන්නේ නැහනේ. එළියේ ඉඳලා fail වෙන්න එළියේ ඉඳලා මොකද reasons එන්නේ නැහනේ. internally ඔයාගේ ප්‍රශ්නේ තියෙන්නේ පාඩම් කරපු නැති එක, හරියටම understand කරපු නැති එක, self study කරපු නැති එකනේ reasons වෙන්න ඕනේ. Those reasons are obstacles, barriers. It can be external or internal. Don't assume all barriers are coming from internal, externally. Okay. Internal barriers also considered as the risk factors. So risk means fail to achieve something. Why you are going to fail? What are the root cause? What are the reasons? What are the factors influence you to fail that process, fail to achieve that objective? Okay. So those root causes called barriers and obstacles. Okay, barriers. So that general explanation you can apply to internal control risk internal control risk topic. Internal control risk is that internal controls will fail to achieve their intended control objective. Fail to achieve its intended objective. Why internal controls fail to achieve its intended objective? Those reasons are I have given below. Reasons for control failure. Those barriers, factors. Okay. First point, you have to remember what is meant by risk, internal control risk. General definition, if you fail to achieve your objective, that is called risk. Why you have failed? Because of certain reasons. Those are the general terms, barriers and obstacles. Okay. Fail to achieve internal controls objective. It's called risk. Why? Internal controls have failed to achieve its objective. Reasons are, first one, internal controls are designed badly. Okay. Internal controls are designed badly. Second one, employees are unaware of the control. Third one, the controls may be ignored in practice. These are the simple, straightforward things. Okay. Controls are deliberately avoided. These four reasons. So I have highlighted 4 points here. You should remember the highlighted point. Highlighted words you have to remember. Other parts you can write in your own word by using your own words, no issue. But these highlighted parts are most important thing. You have to remember these highlighted parts. Designed badly, employees are unaware, the control may be ignored in practice and deliberately avoided. Okay, one by one we'll quickly go through. Internal controls may be designed badly. As a result, they are unable to perform their intended function objective. Designed badly. What is meant by designed badly? Anyway, these things we will discuss in detail deficiency also. I will come to later as a last one before last point, last topic. So designed badly. Control here, don't misunderstand. Control, internal control is not designed. Okay, here you should not understand like that. Here internal control is designed, but it has not achieved its objective. Internal control has been designed, but it has not achieved its intended objective. So which means, let's take an example, simple example. Further explanation I will give under deficiency of internal control topic. Here I will just explain. I have given an example when we were discussing this segregation of duties concept, prepared by, checked by, approved by, and authorized by. Likewise, 5 controls are there. Control has been designed. Control has been designed. Controls theonomy. Control has been designed. What are the controls? Prepared person must be signed. Check person must be signed. Authorized person, approved person should be signed. This is the control. If all these processes, if these all processes are done by 2 persons, whether those control objective can be achieved or not. 2 person, 2 persons, 1 person does 2 key activities. Let's say in the payment process you have 5 activities. Let's assume like that. You have 5 activities in the payment process. Out of that 5 activities, 1 person, only 2 persons are involved. 1 person does 2 activities. Controls are there. Controls also designed. Can you say that controls are achieving its objective? No. Same person prepared and same person checked and second person approved and authorized. But 4 activities are there. Okay. 4 activities are there. Prepared, checked, approved and authorized. Prepared by and checked by also same person signed and approved and authorized by the same person. Controls are there, but those are designed badly. I will give another example also when we are discussing deficiency. So designed, already designed. Authorized करण no ne, approve करण no ne, prepare करण no ne, signature da no ne, sign करण no ne, check करण no ne. Controls are there. I'm not saying controls are not there. Controls are already designed, but those are designed badly, which means controls are there. By approval signature must be placed. By 1 person must check. By 1 person must approve and authorize. Why 1 person should approve and another person should authorize? Because if approved person makes mistakes, authorized person will detect the mistake. If prepared person makes mistake, check person will detect the mistake. If check person make mistakes, approved person will detect. So that is the objective of these controls. Okay. So controls are placed, controls are designed, but those controls are not achieving its intended objective. Clear? So bad design, but badly designed. Second one, employees are unaware of the controls. As of this result, controls are not implemented. One of the internal control elements we discussed, one of the internal control elements is information communication. Information communication is most important element because, as I explained earlier, if board of directors decided, yes, board of directors decided they are going to implement the internal controls. With strong, I have included the word, the sentences also. With only the strong internal control environment, company cannot achieve effective and efficient internal control. Okay, strong internal control environment is the basic element, fundamental element. With that, other control elements also should include in that process. Then only company can achieve efficient, effective internal control. Clear? So one of the other elements is information communication. So in order to implement the internal controls, board of directors, senior management need employee support. That's why in the information and communication, I have given their roles and responsibilities in relation to the internal controls, and risk and controls must be communicated to the employees top to bottom, bottom to top, and across the organization. All the employees, whoever involved in the internal control process, they must know about their roles and responsibilities and controls and risk details. So that's the important point. So management has designed controls. They have intention to implement that control properly, but they fail to communicate those information. What are those informations? Controls, risk, roles and responsibilities of employees. They miss to communicate relevant employees. Then implementation process, they may face difficulties. So employees are not informed. Employees were not informed. Then they can't implement. That is also risk. The control may be ignored in practice or not applied. Okay, implemented. Okay, now design also okay. Properly designed without mistakes. Properly designed, properly implemented. Okay, properly communicated to the employees. Now properly implemented. No issue. But still, controls are ignored. Implemented. Okay, implemented, but controls are ignored in practice. ඒක කවුරුත් follow කරන්නේ නැහැ. නිකන් නමට විතරක් තියාගෙන ඉන්නවා. Just on paper, just for formalities, they keep these internal controls, but no one is following. So that is also problem. That is also risk. If you don't follow, what will happen? You can't achieve the objective of internal control. On paper, you have written all the controls and strong controls. If anyone reads your internal control paper, then they will assume, oh, this company has perfect internal control. All the controls are achieving its internal objective. Likewise, that impression he can get. But practically, on paper only, you have all these things. Practically, you have not implemented those internal controls. What will happen? Design internal controls will not achieve its internal objective. Then fail. Then it will fail. Last one, controls are deliberately avoided, purposefully avoided. If someone wants to commit in fraud activity, purposefully he will avoid the internal control. Anything? Purposefully he will avoid. So that also one of the reasons of failure of one of the reasons of failure of internal control. Clear? I hope you understood. So these 4 reasons you must remember. 8th topic, governance and risk. Governance and risk. So now under governance and risk, what is the concept we are going to discuss? The concept we are going to discuss under governance and risk is responsibilities. responsibilities. Just note in your notebook, governance and risk means responsibilities. Who are the responsible party? Who are the responsible parties of internal control in the organization? Who are the responsible parties of internal control in the organization? So under governance and risk, we are going to discuss about the responsibilities of relevant parties. First of all, I want to tell parties involved in the internal control. First, board of directors. Second, management. Third, auditors. In auditors, we can classify into two, internal and external. Okay, these four people are involving in internal control. Employees, okay, don't misunderstand. Employees will not take part in the uh, internal controls. They also part of the internal controls, but main four people are these people: board of directors, management, internal auditor, and external auditor. These four people. So now we are going to discuss about what are the roles and responsibilities of these four people. First, we will take director, board of directors, board. Initially, I told today's session, beginning of the session, I told board when we were discussing. Directors are the final responsibility for internal controls. That word must be highlighted. Okay, you must highlight that word. Don't misunderstand senior management or employees or internal auditor or external auditors are responsible for internal controls. Don't misunderstand like that. Final responsible must be with directors. Clear? That must be highlighted and clearly you should understand. Clearly that must be kept in your mind. Board of directors are board of directors is responsible for the ultimate responsible. They are the ultimate responsible. They are the final responsibility for internal controls. Okay. The board of directors has final responsibility for the effectiveness of internal control system. And in listed companies, the board is accountable to the shareholders. Listed companies, board of directors is board of directors has responsible to accountable to board of directors is accountable to the shareholders in PLC companies. In private limited companies, mostly mostly I'm saying mostly, I'm not saying 100%, mostly on a managed company. So directors and shareholders are same person mostly. So when it comes to PLC companies, directors are separate person and shareholders are separate person. So board of directors is accountable to shareholders. Board responsibilities for internal control. The board of directors is responsible for ensuring that company has effective internal control system. The board of directors should have sound system of internal control to safeguard the investment of their shareholders. The board should review the design and effectiveness of system of internal control. There should be ongoing system for identifying, evaluating, and managing significant risks. So these are the roles and responsibilities of board of directors. Okay, final responsibility should be with board of directors. An note important point to note is that the effectiveness of internal control in company is responsibility of the board of directors. I have also highlighted, and you also should write in your notebook and highlight properly. Ultimate responsibility of internal control effectiveness is with board of directors. Ultimate or final responsibility of internal control is with board of directors. Okay. So next party, who is the next party? Management. So board of directors are strategy makers. Okay, board of directors are strategy makers. They will guide management. Then company එකේ board of directors වල බෑලා ඇවිල්ලා එක කරන implement කරන්නේ නැහනේ. ඒගොල්ලන් direction එක දෙනවා. That's why they are calling directors. They will give the direction. That direction will be implemented through management. Okay, that's the normal. Not only internal control. Whatever you take in the organization, whatever you take in the organization, directors will give the direction. Okay, they are the directors. Okay, they are the directors of the company. So their strategies, their solutions, their thoughts will be implemented with the support of management. Management will do needful activity to make it happen. Okay, management will do certain activities to make it happen of to make it happen of directors thinking. Okay, directors strategy. So directors will implement the controls through management. Okay, එහෙමනේ දැන් companies වල තියෙන්නේ directors තා management through නේ වැඩ ටික ගන්නෙ. So likewise internal controls also directors will implement the system, internal control system through management. So that's why they are saying management is given delegated responsibility. Clearly understand this word, delegated responsibility. Board of directors has final responsibility. Okay, final responsibility. ඒගොල්ලන්ට ඇවිල්ලා කියන්න බෑ මේක management තමයි කරේ, මේක external auditor කරේ, මේක internal auditor කරේ. ඒ නිසා මට responsibility ගන්න බෑ කියලා කියන්න බෑ. Board of directors job is they should implement, they should get the work from management. Okay, they are the final responsibility of internal control. So here management is given delegated responsibility. What is mean by delegated? Directors final responsibility, directors strategies, their solution, their work, their design work, so their thought has been given to the management and management should implement that one. Okay, that's why we are saying delegated responsibility for designing and implementing the control system. Directors will give, we want this one. They will say like that. We want this output we want. Okay. In order to get this output, these are the things we should implement. Those solutions, those actions they will give. Whatever, sorry, those decisions, those solutions or strategies they will give. And management should implement those things. Okay. Management should implement those actions. In order to implement those actions, what they should do? First of all, they should design. Internal controls must be designed. So management should design the internal control and implement the internal control. Okay. So management is given the delegated responsibility for designing and implementing the control system. Board of directors says we want strong internal control. For that, we have to design and implement. That idea they will give. So management will design the internal control and implement the internal control. That's why we are saying delegated responsibility. Okay. In some time, in some let's say after some time, board of directors cannot say misunderstand කරගන්න එපා. After some time, board of directors cannot say this has been designed and this has been implemented by the management, so we are not responsible for internal control. They can't say like that. Okay, final responsibility is management. Whatever design, whatever designed by the management, that must be approved by the board of directors. Clear? So board of directors will review. Sorry, review means board of directors will approve, but before approving, those things must be prepared. No, before approval, those must be prepared. Or those must be designed. So that's designing process. Board of directors has given that responsibility to management because ඒගොල්ලන් වැඩ කරන්නේ නැහැ නේ. ඒගොල්ලන් design කරලා ගන්න නැහැ නේ. ඒගොල්ලන් direction එක දෙනවා. Management will fulfill their expectation. So directors has given their thought ideas and their their objective and their plan. So based on that, management should prepare the design, should design the internal control, and that must be approved by the board of directors. Okay, ඒ බැඩ ටික කරන්නේ management. Finally එක approve කරනවා ඒ බැඩ දැන් කියනවානේ management එකකින් වැඩ ගන්නවා කියලා. ඒක තමයි මෙතන වෙන්නේ. Okay, they are taking work from management, but final responsibility for that work means internal control, is board of directors. Clear? Managements ලාගේ through වැඩ ටික ගන්නවා. ඒක තමයි meaning එක. Clear? That's why we are saying delegated responsibility. So designing and implementing is the main role of management. Management is responsible for introducing controls in organization. They should approve the design of control. They should ensure that controls are implemented properly. They should ensure that controls information communicated to relevant persons. So delegated responsibilities, designing and implementation. They have to design, which means they have to approve, design and approve. Final approval must be given by the directors. Okay, they should approve and they should implement. They should communicate to the relevant people. These are the management responsibility. First of all, first designing and implementation. General delegated responsibilities, design and implementation. If we elaborate design and implementation responsibility further, approve the design, implement the design and implement the internal controls, communicate the internal controls to relevant people, and review the effectiveness. Simple. You can understand these four. What are the responsibilities of management? Approval of internal control design, implement the internal controls. Third one, we have to communicate internal controls to the relevant people, and finally review whether effectiveness and efficiencies they are or not. Okay, effectiveness of internal controls. Clear? So these four are in management's responsibilities. Now, internal auditor and external auditor. Internal auditor and external auditor's responsibilities. I will give some notes, some points or some words. Just write in your notebook. Okay. Write internal auditor left side and external auditor right side. The physical class na mama ekomat ලියනවා whiteboard again. So here you just write left side internal auditor under responsibilities, internal auditors and external auditor responsibilities. Internal auditor left side, external auditor right side. So internal auditor's responsibilities are in relation to internal control. Internal auditors, I will explain after that. I will give the keywords. Internal auditors, mainly they are doing the review process. In the control elements, we discussed about elements. No, in the control elements, out of that control five control elements, one of the control element is monitoring, reviewing. So internal auditors should perform review process, review the internal controls. So internal auditors, they should review the internal control of the organization effectiveness. They should review the effectiveness of internal control of the organization at regular interval. Okay, you can see in the organizations normally once a month or at least once in 3 quarters, internal auditor should review the internal control effectiveness of the company and they should submit the report. So basically, internal auditors' role in terms of internal control, they should first point at regular. I will give separately that what are the short notes we have to include. Now I'm explaining. Internal auditors should review the effectiveness of internal control of the organization at regular interval. That's the first point. Second one, after reviewing, they should identify the weaknesses of internal control. And third point, they should recommend the strategies. Okay, they should recommendation. In short form, we can say recommendation. They should provide recommendations to overcome the weaknesses. This is the internal control. Internal auditor's responsibility. So right, first point under internal auditor. Internal auditor should review. Internal auditor should review internal auditor should review effectiveness of company's internal control system. Effectiveness of company's internal control system. Internal auditors should review company's internal control system at regular interval. That's the first point. At regular interval. Month in bracket write monthly or quarterly. Biannual නැත්තම් once a year කරලා තේරුමක් නැහැ. Already I told this point in the classroom. So no point to perform once a year. At least they should biannual also. No point. At least they should perform monthly or quarterly. After review, second point, after review, internal auditors, after review, internal auditors should submit their findings in bracket weaknesses. After review, internal auditors should submit their findings. Their findings in bracket write finding එකට bracket එකකින් ලියා ගන්න in findings weaknesses and they should provide internal auditors should provide recommendations. They should provide recommendations for findings. Recommendations for findings. Recommendations for findings. On the other hand, external auditors, when it comes to external auditors, anyway, detailed discussion we will have when we are discussing audit, fundamentals of audit, your third chapter, third main content, 40% main content. At that point, I will explain in detailed manner. So here, external auditor, if we take external auditor, I will explain first. After that, I will give the short form, short notes. External auditors, they will consider just a brief external auditor's role. External auditors, their scope is only financial statement, not beyond that. Okay, not beyond that. So as an external auditor should provide their opinion on financial statement. So their scope is within the financial statement, not beyond that. So when they perform the audit, external auditors, when they perform the audit, they will consider controls. Okay, internal controls they will consider. That controls also, out of that internal controls also, they will consider only financial controls. We have discussed types of controls no last class. Today also we have discussed today morning also types of controls, financial, operational, compliance. Out of these financial controls only, why they are checking financial controls, those aspects we will discuss in audit. Now I can't explain in detailed manner. Anyway, we will discuss those parts in the audit. For the time being, just understand external auditors scope is limited. Okay, they are bounded only for financial statement verification. Okay, financial statement verification. So their objective also provide an opinion on financial statements, not beyond that. So in order to provide an opinion on financial statements, what is opinion, why auditors are appointed, those things I will discuss later in detailed manner when it comes to fundamentals of auditing. Don't bother about those things now. Just after discussing that one, you can easily understand this topic. So uh, 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 I don't need to uh, give more examples. If we once we discuss this fundamentals of audit, automatically you can discuss why financial controls only we should take care. Why financial controls only you should auditor should consider. So now for the time being, just understand financial controls only financial controls are only considered by external auditors because their scope is only financial statement. So for that purpose, they will consider only the financial controls. So external auditors will focus only the financial controls while they are performing the external audit. They will consider financial control. It's a part of process, audit process. They will consider if they notice any weaknesses or findings in relation to the financial controls while they are doing the audit, they will provide those findings and recommendations to the audit committee or director or board of directors or management. Okay, okay, clear. I hope you have understood. If while they are performing the audit, they will consider only the financial controls. In that audit, if they find any financial controls weaknesses, which means findings, then they will provide recommendations for findings also. With findings and recommendation, they will provide like internal auditors, but external auditors will focus only the financial controls. So here, most important thing, external auditor does not have direct responsibility in relation to internal control. So first, you should write under external auditor. External auditor does not have direct responsibility in relation to internal control. Okay, first right, direct responsibility. They don't have external auditor does not have direct responsibility in relation to internal controls. Highlight the words does not have direct responsibility. Like internal auditor, external auditor does not have direct responsibility. Their responsibility provide, their responsibilities provide opinion on financial statement. To achieve that objective, they should do certain audit process. They should do certain audit process. So while they are performing those audit process, one of the audit process is testing internal controls. They are also financial internal controls. So first point, they don't have direct responsibility in relation to internal controls. Second point, right under external auditor, when when external auditor performs audit procedure, when external auditor performs audit procedures, when external auditors perform audit procedures, external auditor, when the external auditors perform audit procedures, they consider they consider internal financial controls. They consider internal financial controls. They consider, just include the word only also. They consider only internal financial controls. When external auditors perform audit procedures, they consider internal financial control. They consider only internal financial controls. When external auditor performs audit procedure, they will consider only internal financial controls. Third point, right? If they find any weaknesses or observations or findings. If they find any weaknesses, if they find any weaknesses, if they find any weaknesses, stroke observations, stroke findings, those findings will be those findings will be communicated with recommendations. Those findings will be communicated with recommendations to management or board of directors. Management or board of directors. In bracket, right? This is required by auditing standard. This is in bracket, right? This is required by auditing standard. This is required by auditing standard. Okay. External auditors consider the effectiveness of internal financial controls as a part of annual audit process. They should report to management and the audit committee about any weaknesses in internal financial controls that they discover. However, the external auditor do not have direct responsibility for internal control, but they should report deficiencies in internal control as required by auditing standards. I hope you have understood. For internal auditors, they have responsibility to find, they have responsibility to find findings or weaknesses, not only financial control, entire internal controls of the organization, operational, compliance, financial. And if they find any weaknesses or findings, that must be communicated to the management or board of directors with recommendations. That is internal auditor's responsibility. When it comes to external auditor does not have any direct responsibility, but when they perform audit, they will consider internal financial controls. Okay, internal financial controls. After that, if they find any findings in relation to internal financial controls, that findings must be communicated to the audit committee or board or management with recommendations. This is required by auditing standard. Okay, this is enough for this level. This is enough for the time being. Okay. Further explanation about these things, further concepts we will discuss under fundamentals of audit and assurance. So next topic, IT controls. Controls in computer systems can be categorized as follows. Now, next topic we are going to discuss about IT controls. IT controls, information technology controls. So there are controls now. If you take an organization, that organization might have manual controls as well as IT controls, manual controls and IT controls. So manual controls, I don't need to explain you because manual controls, signing the payment vouchers, signing the invoices, manually you are signing. Okay, those controls called manual controls. What is meant by IT controls? In ERP systems, automated controls. Automatically those controls are placed and automatically those controls are activated. Okay, so manual involvement is no needed. So those call automated controls. So those automated controls called IT controls. Those IT controls can be classified into two: general controls and IT application controls. Okay, before discussing in detail about these automated controls or IT controls, I want to explain this chapter, this part with example, our normal life today example. Listen to me. Let's say you have mobile phone. Okay, forget about the organization, all these IT, those things. First of all, you should understand the concept. Let's say you have mobile phone. In your mobile phone, you might have put, definitely not might, 95 percentage of people, we put lock, phone lock. Okay. If phone is not activated 1 minute or 30 seconds, then automatically it will be locked. Okay. That lock might unlock pattern that in order to unlock phone, you may use numbers or your fingerprint or pattern, whatever password. In simple term, we can say password. That password you should put. Okay. So if we take your mobile phone, in your mobile phone, in order to unlock your mobile phone, you have put some password. Let's say number password you have put. Once you log into your unlock your phone, once you unlock your phone, you can see lot of apps in your phone. Your mobile banking, WhatsApp, Facebook, Messenger, Instagram. Likewise, lot of apps are available in your phone. Okay. So for each of these applications also, apps also, you might have put passwords. If you take your mobile banking, let's say commercial bank, you have, in order to sign in that commercial bank account, you have password and username. Okay. So this unlock password for your entire mobile phone. Okay. Unlock password, you have, what you have placed, but unlock password, what you have, that is general control. In order to unlock your phone, mobile phone, you use password. That password called general control. It is applicable to all applications. If you unlock your mobile phone only, you can access to Facebook or WhatsApp or Instagram or your mobile bank. So your common password, that let's say number password, that number password will be applicable to all applications available in your phone. Okay, that is called general control. That's called general control. If you take your phone, your number, if you put number password to unlock your phone, then that number password will be applicable to inside all applications. Okay, that that number password will be applicable to as far entire phone, including applications available in the phone also. If you unlock only, you can access to your mobile bank or WhatsApp or Facebook or Instagram. So that unlock password, phone unlock password, considered as general control. It is applicable to all application, not only specific application. Okay, once you unlock the phone, now if you want to access your mobile banking app, after that you should specifically give password what you have placed for that particular mobile app, mobile banking app. That particular password and username called application control. In order to access that application, you have separate password and username. So in order to access your Facebook, you have separate password, separate username and password. For WhatsApp, separate password and username. For mail, separate password and username. Likewise, each and every app, you have separate username and passwords. So if that specific app has specific username password, means that specific username password called application controls. Each and every application app has separate controls. So those controls are considered as application controls. Phone unlock control password considered as general control. Clear? I hope you have understood. Clear than at the? Just say. Otherwise, just say send WhatsApp also. If you can't say in uh, chat box so verbally, just send WhatsApp, because not like other chapters. This is general IT control and application IT control. Little bit tricky one, not that much of difficult, but you have to clearly understand. Okay, you have to clearly understand. Just send a message, because you have to understand this concept. Then only I can explain general technical session. Okay, technical aspect I can touch if you understand this mobile phone concept only. So general controls means some controls are applicable to all applications. Okay, all processors. I will come to later that one. So if you take a phone example, some controls are applicable to all applications. WhatsApp, password, Facebook, mobile bank, mail, all applications. These certain controls are applicable. Those controls are called general controls. If you put specific password, if you put specific username password to specifically only for that particular control, that particular app, that control will only work to that app only. Okay, if you put password control and password for Facebook, that password will work only for the Facebook. If you put separate password username for bank, that password and username will work only for the bank. So those controls called application controls. Your phone unlock pattern will be considered as general controls. Keep that in your mind. We will go to IT general controls. So the same application you can apply to the organization point of view. If you apply to the organization point of view, organizations, in order to maintain their IT system, they will take some strategies. They will use some strategies. In other terms, they will use some controls. Those controls are Windows update, antivirus card update, firewall implementation, and disaster recovery plan, and maintaining backup. So these activities are not related to only certain application, specific application. These controls, whatever I have highlighted in the red, and I have given some examples also, general controls. These controls are applicable irrespective of specific process. These controls are applicable to entire process of the organization. Let's say, for example, දැන් antivirus guard එකක් implement කරා. දැන් backup එකක් කරා කියලා. නැත්නම් Windows එකක් Windows OS එකක් update කරා කියලා. Whether this one, these controls will only affect to sales process, or only affect to purchase process, or only affect to uh, inventory process. No, it will applicable to entire organization. If organization updates their window, if organization install virus guards, if organization um, if organization do backup for their backup activity, if organization install firewall protection, so these controls will be applicable to all processes. Okay, not only for specific processes. So those controls will be considered as general controls. Okay, those controls will be considered as general controls. IT general controls include controls over the access to the computer and its records, the development of programs, prevention of unauthorized changes to the systems, maintaining backup files, antivirus programs, and firewall defenses. Such controls are general because they support many applications. Such controls are general because they support many applications. Example, inventory, payroll, trade receivables. Examples of general controls. Examples of general controls. So here you should remember whatever I have marked in blue color. Okay, you don't need to remember all these full theory. I have given only for your understanding purpose. I have given this full theory. But if you remember highlighted part, whatever I have highlighted in blue, if you remember that those parts, that is sufficient. Okay, so backup procedures in first point, backup procedure, antivirus software, firewalls to prevent hackers, disaster recovery plans, those are coming under data center and network operations. System software acquisition, change and maintenance. System software acquisition means example such as Windows or Apple OS. Okay, updates තියෙනවානේ. Those called system software acquisition. Application system acquisition. or development and maintenance. Examples: calculating wages and invoices and forecasting inventory usage. Access security, password implementation. Access security, password implementation is considered as application internal general controls. Any system connected to the internet must be protected by password virus checkers. So password virus checkers, firewalls, encryption. So these all controls are applicable to entire process of the organization. These controls only not only applicable to specific processes. Keep that in your mind. That is most important thing. So password, password protector protection, firewall implementation, antivirus guard implementation or installation, Windows update, Apple OS or something, and yeah, a disaster recovery plan, backup activity. These all activities will be considered as general IT controls. So with that, I will stop today's session. So rest of the things we will discuss next physical class. I have another three topics in internal control. So quickly, I will take another half an hour or 45 minutes to discuss this rest of the topics next class. So after discussing these topics, we can conclude internal control. Okay. And immediately after completing these topics, I will discuss, I will start to discuss audit. So hereafter, don't cut the classes. Okay. Most important thing, since audit is new to you, you are going to study audit freshly from next class onwards. So don't cut the classes because we don't have much time to do the revision also. While we are doing the question only, we can do the revision. So next class, in physical class, I will do that 4 questions also. We have 4 questions. After that, we will do other questions also time to time. So here, after completing rest of the session, rest of the topics, I will start audit as well. Okay, I will start audit as well. So don't cut the class, don't cut future classes. So if you don't understand the audit, then they ask the question also, not only audit, other chapters also. But most important thing, since the first time you are going to learn audit, don't cut the classes. Okay, so all new terms will come, new words will uh, new words you should learn. Some new words are there in the auditing. Certain words you must use the same word. You can't you don't have any alternative words also. So certain words you must use the same word. So those words you don't have any alternatives. So those words you have to study. So critical things are there, most important things, because that audit area also will cover 40% of your syllabus. So out of that 100, you will get 40% of marks in your question paper as well. So these are things I want to tell. I think whoever not mark the attendance, just try this one. And if this is not supported, just let me know. Make a support करा නැද්ද? Otherwise, I will give 5 minutes to record your attendance. If not supported, just let me know.
It's not work, sir.
It's not work. Okay. Just try now whether it's working. Is it working now? Is it working now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Shall I conclude? Okay ने कवरुत mark करने दिया ना होता. Then okay. I will wind up. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.